Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Simple Pin Podcast. I'm your host, Kate All. We are diving into a 3-part series all about troubleshooting your Pinterest marketing. We're going to cover 3 aspects we think are important for you to investigate. That is images, keywords, and content. In this episode, we're going to talk about Pinterest images. This is the flagship way that users on Pinterest interact with your content. So it makes sense that this is the first thing we're going to tackle. This is where you get the most out of your efforts. At Simple Pin Media, we have a design team where we create images for our clients, but we also can create images for those who are not clients. We help create great images and guide you through the process of pin creation. So click on the link below if you're interested in getting a fresh batch of new Pinterest images or some inspiration to really help troubleshoot your Pinterest images and take your Pinterest marketing to the next level. So click on the link below in the description and set up a time to connect with our team. All right, stay with us. Pinterest images. Let's talk about why this even matters. I'm going to go back to basics here. So people on Pinterest open up their app and majority of people are using their phone. And the first thing they see on their screen are images. You don't see writing underneath like you would on Instagram, but you simply have these images. They almost look like tiles that give you context about what it is you might find if you click on this particular image. Now, the great part about this home feed that you encounter is that what you'll find is a series of pins that you might be interested in based on your searches, based on people you follow, based on the boards you have. There might also be ads in this feed and then suggestions as to what else you might like. But the main consistent component is it is all images. You're really not reading except for what is on the image. Tailwind did a recent study about Pinterest images, which I'll link below in the description. It had some fascinating data that I want to share with you about Pinterest images. Now, in this benchmark report, they analyzed over 1.2 million pins across 17,000 Pinterest business accounts. They gave us an unprecedented look as to what is working right now. In this study, they found that Pinterest remains an evergreen platform where these pins, the images, can continue to drive traffic for years, with over 60% of saves coming from pins older than 1 year. In fact, from Pinterest, I do work with Pinterest as a Pinterest educator. They have confirmed that the lifespan of a pin is an average of 13 months. That is crazy. It means that what you're doing today is not going to fade into the black hole of the internet within 2 days. It's going to be around for years to come. In this study with Tailwind, nearly 9 in 10 of the most viral pins in their study were image pins, with video pins at only 8% and collages at 2%. So that means if you are going to put any effort into your Pinterest marketing where you're working on images, image pins are going to lead the way in interacting with your future customer or reader. So focusing on those quality images should be central to your Pinterest marketing. So what are the common problems that we see with Pinterest images? Number one, we see really terrible font choices. So either you're using font that feels on brand, maybe you use it on your website. Most often it's very scripty font. So it's really hard to read on your phone. And I don't know if you've noticed, especially if you are listening in your podcast app, you wouldn't have noticed, but if you're on YouTube, I have my readers on. I am in my late 40s, which means that my eyes aren't doing so hot. So if you put really small text or you put really script text and I'm looking at the phone without my glasses, then I can't read it. And it's the thing that I suddenly start focusing, not on your content, not even on your image, but the fact I can't read it. I don't even know what it is. This is especially true with images that need context. They need me to understand what it is that is in the image. Now, I know Gen Z is the fastest growing demographic and they are not using readers. But if your demographic is not Gen Z, maybe it's an elder millennial, Gen X, or even a boomer, you need to be very considerate of what type of text you're using in order to get greater engagement. The number 2 problem we see is that these images are beautiful. They are gorgeous and nobody wants to add text to them. And so what you end up finding is maybe you get impressions, but you don't get saves and you don't get clicks because you just have a beautiful image. It's something that just delights the person as they look at it and they just scroll on by. So the debate over text or no text is a longly held debate, especially for those people who find that their images need to be quote unquote pure. Right? Now, there are some instances where we find that no text is okay in the home decor space, in the fashion space, in the makeup space, unless you're doing a roundup, like a compilation of multiple things you're going to show the reader. But for the most part, when we get into food, which is a really big niche, or we get into DIY or crafts, you do need text to give it context. An example I've used a lot is that if you look at a bowl of pasta, let's say it's mac and cheese, and it is in this beautiful setting, it's basically a gorgeous picture, but I don't know what makes this mac and cheese unique. Is it gluten-free? Is it vegan? Is it dairy-free? Is it quick and easy? Is it 15 minutes? Is it 5 ingredients? There's more that I need to know about this particular image to get me to click. So that's number 2. Number 3 is that you're using the wrong dimensions. The correct dimensions are 1000 by 1500, which is a 2:3 ratio. Pinterest has had this dimensions of 2:3 since 2015. It really hasn't changed. If you go any longer than that, what you'll find is that your pins are cut off at the bottom. So if you're adding any important details with branding, then people might not see it. I have noticed this more and more in my home feed that some things are getting cut off if they are the wrong size. So again, the correct dimensions for Pinterest images are 2:3. The other thing that I want to mention that was brought up in Tailwind's study, which I have talked a lot about in the past here on the podcast, is branding. That images that don't have consistent branding tend to get less engagement. Now, what Tailwind has found is that branding might not always be the thing that wins out, especially if you are a seasonal content creator. So the example they talked about was that if you are talking about a recipe or even a craft or home decor that revolves around the fall, but your branding is very bright, very colorful, and it doesn't have any fall colors, it is okay for you to infuse into that image things that will trigger for the pinner that it is a seasonal pin. It is targeting something that is fall. It is targeting something that's spring, summer, or winter. That is a great use of color that might not be connected with your branding. However, if you're a business to business person or you don't have seasonal component to your business, it's okay to use consistent branding. I will tell you, one of the things I'm experimenting with, because I've done this exact troubleshooting and auditing process that I'm going to walk you through in a second, is we've been adding more of softer colors. We want to keep some of our branding still as well. We want to make sure that we have our logo. We want to make sure that it looks very Simple Pin Media, which for Simple Pin Media, our branding overall is fun, professional, consistent, and accurate. And if we can pull that all together to make sure that our images still convey that, as well as what it is the pin is going to be about, we want to see if that ends up bolstering what it is we're already doing with our images. So I am adding a little bit more pink. I am adding a little bit more green just to see how that will jog more engagement instead of my traditional red, gray, black, and white. Jury's still out. We'll see what happens in the next couple of months. Okay, on to that auditing process. How do you audit your images? Number 1 is going to be in your analytics. The data has to guide you as to what's working and what's not working. As a person who has rejected data over the years, I have not wanted to look at it. And that's mostly because I had these longly held beliefs as to what was working and not working based on a feeling, based on my gut. And I hadn't really wanted to go deeper because what if the data told me something different and I didn't know how to pivot? I didn't know how to make a change. That is a tough place to be. But I will tell you, once I have started forcing myself to pick my head up and look at the data, I have been surprised by what I have learned. So here's how I walk through that process. I go into analytics. And what I want to look at is what pins of mine, not of other people's, if I pinned other people's stuff, are driving the most amount of saves and the most amount of outbound clicks. Pinterest has said the number 1 metric that they are interested in using is saves. This tells them who is interested in this particular type of content, that they are going to potentially revisit it later. And that it has value. So those two metrics are really, really important. Then I ask myself, is there a common theme of pins that have no engagement or little engagement versus those that have more engagement? I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to the ones that have more engagement. What is a common theme there? Are there faces? Are there no faces? How many words are being used on an image? Just get really curious about it. Get investigative. And if you want to see all of these images on a particular board, what you could do is pin it to a secret board. Sometimes I'll call this like evaluation or analyze, and I will pin them all there, maybe 10 to 20. And then I look through them on my big screen, because then I can stand back and I can look and I can see, okay, is there something that is a common thread through all of these images? Is there a reason? And one of the things that I've learned in the past when I've done this is that all of our content that has how to in the text for those images, and actually the content is about how to upload a video to Pinterest, how to add rich pins, how to clean up your Pinterest boards, how to create a carousel. These will always have better engagement for me than anything else. It doesn't mean I don't want to talk about anything else. For example, for this one, I might use the phrase how to troubleshoot your Pinterest images or how to create great Pinterest images. But I learned that by looking at all of the pins and seeing, hey, every single time I put how to, those pins have more saves and clicks than the others. And then I can rinse and repeat and use that how to. Then I can go another layer and I could say, is there too much red on one, too little? Is there color on one versus another? Text or no text? I am a B2B, business to business. And so I always use text, because if somebody saw a computer with a Pinterest image on it, it wouldn't make sense to them. I need to give context. You can add these notes for yourself somewhere in a Google Doc, or you can do it in a Google spreadsheet. I don't think it has to be really crazy. Now, if you listen to my episode with Jeff C. a while back, where I talked about his great headline, which was, "Did OpenAI just kill Canva?" He shared a trick at the end of that episode about how to evaluate your Pinterest pins by asking ChatGPT to do it. So make sure you go listen to that episode, because I think there were a lot of takeaways from that particular episode that I think are really, really important. So I'll link that below in the description. The thing you want to note from what you just did is setting up a systematic audit that happens every 3 to 6 months, where you are looking at the data and you are evaluating it. In fact, one of the practices I have for my business is that once a month, we evaluate all the data for all of our platforms. But actually, even once a week, I do that for YouTube, which is really fun for me, because I kind of get to see what's working and what's not working. And it keeps that fresh in my mind so that I'm inspired to keep getting fresher, to keep getting smarter. The same goes with Pinterest. Okay, so now that you've figured out what is working and not working, it's time to troubleshoot a few things. One, if you are particularly somebody who just struggles with images, like it's really hard for you, get Canva templates. We have them. We have tons of them. They're created by our design team, and they will help make this process so much easier. I want you to start there, because it is never a good idea to build from scratch. You can definitely get templates in Canva, but these are built for Pinterest by a Pinterest agency. So I stand behind these being really, really great for you. So that's number one. If you're using Canva, which I think most people are, get templates. I'll leave a link below in the description. Number two, if you have not dialed in on who you are targeting, then I highly recommend you go through our Pinner Persona project. So let me explain a little bit about this. Let's say that you have been on Pinterest for a year, essentially just been throwing spaghetti at a wall. Well, now you're a year in, you have a lot of data, and you want to begin to ask the question, who is my pinner? Who is the person who is engaging with my content? We've had many conversations with people at conferences where they will say to us, I think my person on Pinterest is somebody 45 to 55 and mostly female, and they like XYZ. When we go into their analytics and we go through this Pinner Persona project, we find that actually they're 35 to 45 and they're interested in something totally different. And this blows people's minds, because they thought, well, for sure I'm targeting Gen X. I'm not targeting millennial. And Gen X and millennials have very different aesthetic preferences. So you want to figure out who you're targeting so that can play into your image design. Once you've figured all that out, create 2 to 3 different versions of the Pinterest image, kind of your new style that you're going with, and share that with some friends or a community of people who can give you good feedback. And if you're somebody who has a hard time receiving feedback because you're afraid somebody's going to hurt your feelings, it's okay to say to your friends, hey, I'm really nervous about this. I haven't shared, or asked for feedback from anybody. So I'm just nervous. Can you just go easy on me, but be truthful and be kind about what it is I need to change? I have found when people give me feedback, it's so helpful. In fact, this is a complete side note, but it will illustrate the point. Just recently, I had my brand photos done after 2.5 years, and I went shopping by myself. Of course, way last minute, 2 weeks before the shoot. And actually, it was probably a week before the shoot. And I picked out this beautiful red dress. I thought it was so amazing. And so 2 nights before the photo shoot, I was sending pictures of all my outfits, me wearing them, to 3 friends that I have. And I loved this red dress. I thought it was going to be so perfect. Every single one of them are like, nix the dress. It doesn't match your branding. It looks like you are like a crafting mom, which is not a good thing, or it is a good thing, but it's not the branding I was going for with Simple Pin Media. And I went to my daughter and I said, well, what do you think of this? She's like, I think you're going to a wedding. I'm like, great. So then I had to take a friend with me that day to go buy new clothes to where she could give me an outside perspective to say, this is what you need to wear. This is not something you might wear every single day, but thinking about Simple Pin Media, thinking about the people you're going to engage with, thinking about your whole branding of being fun and professional, this is what matches. It was really hard to receive that at first because I loved that red dress. I thought it was going to be perfect. But you know what? The day of the photos, I ended up having 3 different outfits. I did not wear the red dress. And what ended up happening is those photos are coming to life even better than I could have imagined. But if I would have gone alone, I would have probably picked something that was fine. Nobody else would have noticed, but it wasn't good branding alignment. So this is why we need a community of people to give us feedback. Once you have that feedback and you go into creating your star images, you're going to start pinning those and evaluate in 3 months to see how they have performed. You're going to do the same audit process that you did before to see, okay, I've got these brand new images. How did they do? Now, 3 months isn't always a perfect benchmark. Going back to that 13-month lifespan, on average, it could be that these pins get engagement at 6 months. So just know that it might take a little bit of time. That is how you troubleshoot your Pinterest images. If you have never done this, if it has been several years since you've done it, I highly encourage you to set aside 1 hour. That's it. 1 hour to just deep dive into your Pinterest images. Don't forget to leverage the 2 resources that we have, the Pinner Persona, as well as our Pinterest templates that work for Canva. This will help speed up a little bit of time so that you can really nail it. You can get these great images, and then going forward, you'll just simply have to audit. You'll have to check in. You won't have to do a lot of different things. You'll just check in with your images, make a few tweaks here and there, and you will grow over time. If you have any questions for us or comments, or if you've done the audit as well already on your own, I would love to hear about it. You can comment on YouTube. We answer those comments almost every single day, or you can email us hello@simplepinmedia.com. Alrighty, thanks so much for listening. And don't forget, next week is going to be troubleshooting keywords.